Hello, it's Allyourbasekris here with an interesting video for all you retro sluts out there. I'm going to show you the current state of emulation on the PlayStation 3. Now I'm using a version 3.55 Slim console, which has no hardware modifications, it's all software. And I've installed a few emulators for you to look at. First of all, I'm going to show you SNES 9X. All of these emulators run at about 60 frames per second, and they all work using the DualShock or 6-axis controller. Now you're probably losing a few frames as I record this, but I'm telling you now that it's buttery smooth, this. Alright, that's terrible. I should hand in my geek card for missing those. So as you can see, a Super Nintendo emulator running rather well. Next up, I'm going to show you the Genesis emulator. The SNES emulator and the Genesis emulator are both by the same developer, so they have exactly the same GUI. If you're wondering how I'm running emulators on a PS3, I have installed a modified firmware. All I needed for that was a USB stick, and I did a bit of jiggling with some buttons on the front of it, booted it into service mode, and away I went. With the Genesis emulator, it's essentially the same as the SNES emulator. It runs very well. I have noticed a small amount of slowdown, particularly on Sonic. I'm not too sure if the original console had the same sort of slowdown in the same places. You have to pardon me, I'm trying to play games through the viewfinder. That's why I'm so bad. It's not that I'm rubbish or anything. So again, 60 frames per second or thereabouts. They've got cheat support. You can put an action replay ROM in to run alongside this if you want. A little touch of slowdown there. So there we go. That's the Genesis emulator. This is actually the second attempt I've had at this video, as the first one, just before I uploaded it, this came out. Now, being a massive geek, I'm a huge fan of this next system, and I in fact grew up with an Amiga myself. It's very basic at the moment, there's very little implemented, it's just got the controls, a very dodgy virtual keyboard, and it emulates an A500 or A500 Plus at this precise moment. There is an AGA setting, but it's tricky to get going. This particular emulator was an absolute bitch to set up, I have to be honest. There was a lot of modifying files. Okay, so here we go. You can see how basic this is. This is very early in development. Oh, and it does load games at the same speed as the original Amiga, therefore slow. Ah yes, the Amiga. None of this fancy multiple button setups. All one button. Now this doesn't run at full speed yet. I'm surprised it runs at all, to be perfectly honest, seeing as how short an amount of time there's been to develop anything for the PlayStation 3, especially with the homebrew scene. Adam's Family. Not one I played a lot. Anyway, I'm sure you're all interested in this one. It reads ADF files as you'd expect. It is essentially just just an Amiga emulator. Not quite full speed, nearly. There is a little bit of frame skipping going on. There are also a multiple system emulator available, which does the original Nintendo, the original Mega Drive, Game Boy and Game Gear, I believe. And there is a PlayStation 1 emulator, but it hasn't been compiled for this next firmware, and it doesn't run very well at the moment either. I apologise for the really riveting loading screens and stuff, but I didn't want to cut out of this video at all, just so you can see that I'm not pissing about or pretending to do stuff that I'm not. Oh, okay, never mind. I've changed a random setting. It's probably not going to make any difference, but it might suddenly explode. You can run games from the internal hard disk of the PlayStation 3, ROMs and stuff. So if you've got a nice big hard disk, great. Or you can run them from an external hard drive or USB stick. I'm going to put a USB stick in a minute as soon as something happens with this. If you can see in the bottom right hand corner, about there, that's these are your LEDs, as you'd see on an actual Amiga. England versus Bulgaria. It doesn't really matter because if I remember correctly, I can't play this game anyway. I was more of my 3D games, such as Cybercon 3 and Damocles, Mercenary 3, Frontier, Elite 2, Carrier Command, that sort of thing. But I know that there's a lot of purists here who love their Sensi soccer. Go on, go on. Oh. Giving a corner away. Chris is rubbish. Come on. Whoa. Haha. Yeah, so anyway, I'm just going to show you very quickly now how you can use the USB stick to run your games. It just so happens I've got one that I prepared earlier. Dun, dun, dun. Just a USB cruiser. This is a 16GB one. I know, flash. Okay, now assuming this will register that. It's going to make me reset it. But anyway, suffice to say that you can just use that. So, anywho, in conclusion, if you've got a PS3, you're not overly fussed about playing online, and you're a bit of a fan of retro collection stuff, and you currently don't own the systems, I would suggest you go out and have a crack at this if you want. Instructions are on the internet. It's very simple. It has to be, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it. And this has been Allyourbasekris for Retro Slats. Thank you very much indeed.